And the being is silence. It is truth. It is what we are yearning for all the time without realizing it. But silence is not the opposite of noise. I couldn't be speaking if there was no silence. Why? Because it is the gap between the words that makes talking possible. Music is impossible without silence. The grass grows in silence. The sun and moon move in silence. Even human birth happens in silence. Thomas Keating wrote, silence is the language God speaks. Everything else is a bad translation. And it's so true. Now you might say, but Burt, you do a lot of talking. Yes. We have to talk so that we bring you back to the importance of silence through words. Bhagavan used to say, inquiry is the use of the mind to go beyond the mind. But that's the way it has to work. The human being. See? So silence is truly the language of spirit, the language of God. And we begin to see, and we'll explore it today, how through silence itself we begin to know what we had always known. It's an aha, wow, I've always known this. And we begin to live from it. And hopefully that doing this exploration together today we might get a glimpse of that very silence. Silence, incidentally, can be said to be peace, or bliss, or inner joy. Why do we rush to go fishing? Is it to catch the fish or to enjoy the silence? Or go up in the mountains? Or to take a vacation so that the mind doesn't have to think and worry about tomorrow or yesterday? So really it's all about silence. But silence does not make necessarily not speaking. Silence is something you realize is your very nature. You are a human being. The human is talkative, the being is silent. But we bring them both together to complete each other. Now, so what is silence? Okay, briefly, silence is pure awareness. Now, pure awareness can be divided into two. Pure awareness just is, and then what you are aware of becomes thoughts, perceptions, and beliefs. Do we see the difference between awareness, pure awareness, and what you are aware of? For those of you who are not clear, think of it this way. There's a pot, and there's water in the pot. We can say that pure water is pure awareness. And then you put the vegetables in, okay? And you make a concoction called soup. That's the human. You see? And so the human is a soup. And the being is the awareness of that soup. And it doesn't judge the soup. It doesn't say it's wrong or right. See, that's where peace, compassion, understanding comes in. You see, that's the beauty, because what we think of as wrong is still our conception. And when we begin to understand it, we find that all we ever want is this silence within us. Now, someone had asked me, they said, well, you know, silence, fine, but how does it relate to being active? I'm a very active person. You know, I like being active. I like going up the mountains, hiking, like saving someone in a fire or drowning and active in it. And how does that relate to silence? Because we like being active. Okay, let's assume you're saving someone's life. Okay? At that moment of saving someone's life, is there ego? No. Because if there was, you wouldn't save it, you'd be too scared to. Are you thinking about tomorrow or yesterday? No. So in the moment of action, supreme action, you're totally here. And at that moment, there's courage. Now, many soldiers actually have said this. Before battle, they shook like crazy. Some of them threw up. Some of them just became sick. During the battle, they got involved. You see, but the moment thought came in, then panic set in. So what we're saying here is, whether it's action or non-action, silence is the very nature of being. It is our supreme thing that we want more than anything. So silence is pure awareness. Pure awareness is what we call, and I repeat, love, compassion, beauty, trust, all the beautiful qualities, love, that you can think of. But there is something that is going to make silence very understandable. And I'd like your full attention on this. Silence is self-recognizing. Now, the moment you begin to understand this, you begin to see why it is through silence that you awaken. You can listen to the words, but if you think they're just birds blubbering away, then it will become just memory, and it will mean nothing. But if you can feel what is being said, you'll begin to feel good. That goodness is a silence. The love that you feel in the moment is a silence. You see, and that silence is very, very deep, because it has no words, but it makes the words possible, you see? So who is speaking now? Silence speaks. You see? So it is self-recognizing. Now, what does it mean, self-recognizing? Let's do this. Let's allow yourself to experience silence right now. Okay? Just to see how the truth comes to you through silence. I remember years ago, many years ago, and I've studied philosophy, psychology, metaphysics, you name it, and I've mentioned this many times, but it's apropos at this point. And I appeared on television, and I was considered somebody who knows something. But I realized that all I knew was what I read and studied. And it was a very humbling experience. But you know something? It was at that very point of recognizing my ignorance that my heart opened in humility. Because then I was open to receive. As long as you think you know something, as long as you think you're special, you're closed. You can't receive. But when you open yourself up, you see, then you begin to receive. And that's called silence too. So, self-recognition. Okay, you don't have to close your eyes. Just remain still as you are. And see how we can take, how silence, the very silence itself, will bring knowledge. You have some fears, you have things happening, skepticism, doubts, you're uncertain, or, things happen in your life, and you say, oh, well, yes, I remember what we talked about, surrender, like last week. Now, those of you who have been here, or haven't been here, take a CD from last week about surrender, because it's an important one. So surrender means this, that whatever you're experiencing is an experience, and whatever you are feeling is an energy. And energy is not to be denied, is not to be resisted, is not to be escaped from, because energy is what you are. You are a feeling energy being. So if you deny your anger, what happens? It's got to go someplace else. You see, and it comes out in irritability, in frustration, and depression. You see, it's got to go someplace. Energy has to move. But if you accept it as an energy, and you are an energy being, okay, that very fear becomes love. How does it become love? Okay, you surrender. You've surrendered your whatever it is you are feeling, which you call, it's a contraction, it's negative.